The Seat brand has always been Volkswagen's funky little brother. It breaks away from the German norms in terms of styling and driving. I've always liked Seat because of their aggressive styling and quirky cars, and this Seat Ibiza is no different. The car shares most of its underbody with the Volkswagen Polo, which I already have some videos on, so you can check them out above. The Ibiza, with its aggressive lines and curves, gives this hatchback a larger road presence and character. Even the small daytime running lights in the front just add looks to it. With all of these interesting looks, I'm interested to see how it handles and performs on the road compared to its slightly more premium rival, the Polo. If we take a look inside the cabin of the Seat Ibiza, we can have a look at the dials and the steering wheel. Now the dials are really nice and they're kind of unique and sporty. You can see the fuel gauge in the bottom right of the right dial. I really like those, they look great. And the steering wheel is beautiful, lovely stitched leather. It's really nice for an entry-level car. Then if we move over towards the infotainment system, this one comes with the satellite navigation, which is a nice little feature, especially on a car for this price point. Otherwise, it's very similar to the Polo and it's a very good little touchscreen, and I definitely would recommend it. If we have a look at the fuel consumption, this one gets a little bit worse fuel consumption considering it is also a 1 litre petrol engine. This one's getting 43 and my own 1 litre Polo gets usually about 55 on average. The overall quality of this cabin is nice, everything does feel good. It's maybe a little bit cheaper than the Polo, but that's to be expected. It is a bit cheaper after all, but it is very nice. This variant of the Seat Ibiza that I'm testing is the 1 litre 3-cylinder petrol engine, which is good for about 70 horsepower. And this is 10 more horsepower than the Polo that I have and that I recently just tested. And you can definitely feel that this car feels a little bit more sporty if a 1 litre petrol can be sporty. It definitely wants to rev more, and you might pick it up on the microphone that you can hear the engine revving, and it actually sounds really good. I really enjoy the sound of it. It feels like it wants to rev. It feels like it's kind of made for it, and it has a nice little kind of gurgle once that you actually get it up in the rev range. Now the steering in this, as I'm going around the roundabout, it definitely feels darty. It's very quick. The ratio of how much you turn the wheel to how much the car turns is very high. You just need to turn it a little bit and it moves a lot. So it's quite nice. It gives it a very agile feel that it can move anywhere, anytime you want. So that is a big plus to that. I really like that. The suspension also is a bit firmer than my Polo, which again adds to the feel of the car, but it is a little bit harder, and you can notice that. And I noticed that when I was recording because I found that my camera was bobbing a lot. So hopefully it won't look too shaky. We're on a nice stable road right now, so hopefully it won't be. I don't know if you can hear that. If I drop down a gear, you can kind of hear the engine. It's definitely louder than in my Polo. I think the Polo has a better soundproofing overall because you do get a little bit more noise from the engine and the road and the wind noise as well. But it kind of almost adds to the car in a way. It's nice to be able to hear the engine and hear what you're doing in the car. I really like that. The gearbox in this manual version is actually also very good. It's not very notchy, it's not very mechanical. It moves backwards and forwards very easily. I always find that petrol gearboxes are always, they just feel a little bit smoother than a diesel. So I always like that. I always enjoy getting a petrol car for that reason. You just know the gear changes are usually going to be pretty good. It's nothing too special, you know, it is an entry-level car after all, but it does feel nice. It's a very enjoyable driving experience. So as I usually do, I want to mention a few things that I like about the car and a few things that I don't like about the car. The first thing I do like about the car is the fuel economy is pretty good. It's not amazing, it's not as good as the Polo, like a Blue Motion variant if you go for it, which was averaging about 55 miles to the gallon. But with this car, it gets about 43 to 48 miles per gallon, which, you know, it's not the worst thing ever. It's definitely not bad, but you probably pay for that little bit of increase in horsepower with, what are you doing? Sorry. Some drivers on the road don't know how to use roundabouts. Another thing I do like about the car is it feels more sporty. It feels like it wants to rev. So in that respect, I feel this car might be a better first car for somebody that's young, that's looking for something that feels a little bit more sporty, even though it realistically isn't that much sportier. But it does feel a little bit better. It wants to rev a bit higher. The suspension's a bit firmer. It kind of holds and darts on the road a little bit better. So I really do like that. Also the back, the boot is also really good. There's ample space in there, and the back is pretty much exactly the same as the Polo. There's pretty much the same dimensions. You can fit the same amount of people. 2 people at most. I would say 3 would be a really hard squeeze. Now onto a few things I don't like so much about the car is the interior. While it is very good, it does feel that little bit cheaper than a Polo, but that's to be expected. There's just a few cheaper plastics in a few places that make it feel a bit worse, but overall it is not by much, I can tell you that much. And the only other thing I don't really like about the car that much is the noise isolation. You don't feel that much isolated from the noise going on the road noise from the tires, the wind noise, the engine noise, so you can hear a lot more. If you're somebody that wants a more quiet experience, I would definitely go for a Polo because it has that nailed down very well and you really don't hear much. Whereas on this, you just kind of pick up that little bit more, which isn't necessarily a bad thing either. I quite like it, and I quite do enjoy driving this car, if that is even proper English. We're coming up to a roundabout here. I'm just gonna watch it carefully, see what this guy's doing, and we're gonna give it a rev, okay? And we're gonna go from, just gonna rev it out properly. See if you can hear the engine. You should be able to hear it. See, it kind of has a bit of a punch to it. I quite like that. It sounds very good. Yeah, the steering definitely does feel a lot more nimble than the Polo. It just feels like it wants to turn in and cut the corner almost. And it moves and holds itself a lot better. The Polo can be a bit like wishy-washy, kind of floating around because the suspension is kind of soft, because I feel like a Polo might be aimed towards an older generation, maybe an older person that's looking for a car that's a bit more refined. This car is a bit more sporty, it looks a bit more sporty and aggressive. It does genuinely feel that little bit different. This thing very comfortably revs up towards the higher end of the range, which I really like. It does feel better, and the steering wheel, being that leather being stitched, has notches right in the right place for your hands, does definitely feel better than the Polo as well. So there are a few things in this car that definitely have a step up from the Polo, and then there's a few that kind of fall a little bit short. It's like a Polo. So overall, this car I think is a great package, especially for a younger driver that's looking for something that's a little bit less boring than some of the German alternatives. It feels nice on the inside. It's got everything you want, and I wouldn't complain. I especially don't think anyone that is a first-time driver getting this car would ever complain about anything in here. What you want is everything you touch and mainly interact with every day feels good, and there's nothing really cheap about that. So you just know, you feel like you're in a safe car, and a car that's very capable as well. So I think this is a great all-round package for anyone that's looking for a small, compact hatchback with maybe not a premium price tag, something a little bit lower. I just want to say thank you very much for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to see any more. I'll see you guys in the next one.